Nothing seriously arises out of this, and there are no reprisals. Usually that's what we see. There are always reprisals because a press conference was convened in which in one of the papers the elder of the community is said to be saying that they should hold the police responsible, and that's been reported on the front page of the New Crusading Guide. And in that press conference, the elder of the traditional area said that pointed fingers at well, the police, and in such matters they always finger pointing made towards the police, etc., because it seemed that legitimately they should be responsible for making sure peace and security is maintained. But the point is that sometimes the traditional areas have certain factions, whether well, they are chieftaincy or whatever, that even the police don't tend to have some grasp on, and that's a real difficulty for the security services.
Well, naturally, when people lose loved ones, they would definitely want to get immediate answers, and in their own minds they would want to add 1 + 1 together and say that if you had been up to it in terms of your responsibilities, this would not have happened. But that's separate from the environment where you talk about factions here and there. Now, and I think it's a good thing not to, for the traditional authorities not to begin to look at factions yet, but to ask questions of those who are responsible for security in the area. Then, step by step, we would be able to get to the bottom of the matter. Because see, as soon as you begin to accuse other factions, then they would naturally become defensive. And you know, there can be misrepresentations, there can be mistakes. Yes, the fact that we are rivals does not necessarily mean that your rival had a hand in the murder. Not yet, until there's evidence. So I think it's appropriate for us to begin from who is responsible for security in the area, and then when we begin to hear from them, we'll be able to make very measured and responsible conclusions. So holding press conference to lay blame at the doorstep of the...
It's not the right thing to do.
No, it is, in my view. Okay? In my view, that is where you should be directing the questions. You are in charge of DISEC, okay? The district security system. You are head of police. You are BNI rep here. This murder is taking place. Who should we ask? Should we go to our so-called rivals and begin to accuse them? We should ask you, those who are in charge, the relevant questions. And if you are able to tell us, if you're able to provide the answers, then we'll be able to, get to the bottom of it. Fortunately, some arrests have been made, and I hope that we would not introduce the usual politics into this one. Yes.
And let's see whether this one too we can devoid this one of politics. The Enquirer is reporting that this is petty. $3 million Bui Golf Park Bruhaha, Kwabna Donko General Mosquito dismissed minorities accusation. I don't know whether you've been following the story about, for example, the MPA is said to be renting its premises at $63,000 and for something that has also been dismissed by, we have the Energy Committee of Parliament saying that, well, whatever development plans that are taking place in Bui is part of the overall general development of the Bui development plan. And the chairman of the Energy Committee in Parliament, Dr. Konadoko, has described the minority group in Parliament as being petty for criticizing the Bui Power Authority at the news conference before the weekend. And the minority alleged that the Bui Power Authority had been allowed by government to spend $3 million on a golf park. And speaking exclusively to the media, he said although he would not speak to the figures quoted by the minority, he sees nothing wrong with the building recreational centers for staff of the power producer. He says that it takes a lot for engineers, etc., and the caliber of the workforce of the Bui Power Authority to go and live in a reclusive area like Bui And also overall, it's part of the general development plan of the Bui development plan in itself. And well, those were the responses. The MPA, the rental they were making, 63,000 they're paying each month, and now all these expenditures were being told. But well, the Energy Committee says nothing wrong with it. I start with you, Mr. Blankson.
Well, in my view, the amount spent on the building of MPA is something maybe when you are outside, you might think maybe there's something wrong with it.
$63,000.
Yeah, when you are outside, because I have not gone to MPA to assess what goes into that building that warranted that amount to be paid. Unless if I have the architecture engineering knowledge about it to assess why those, the value was put on that building. Then I'll have the guts to be able to condemn or agree to it. You understand? But what interests me this morning was that I saw something in one of the delis that the minister is saying that he's going to investigate to get to the bottom of the matter.
We're told that also, yes.
To ascertain whether what they did was right or wrong, in order to follow suit with the presidential, agenda, that value for money. So with that, I just want to hold my fire on that issue. You understand? Because we have not come to conclusion whether the money involved in the usage for that building was right or not. As he's saying that he is the head of the area, that is, he's going to investigate it. So we want to know when will the investigation end, and we will know the facts. So when the facts are out there, then we also as a Ghanaian, I'll talk from that point of view as a Ghanaian and a citizen, I'll be able to give my comment on the issue. But with that, I'll just hold my fire for that.
We don't want to comment on the Bui subject.
Well, the whole program was a package drawn before the current government came into power. It was a package. It was a design. Because I was listening to my brother Afenyo Makin, who is a minority in Parliament, MP for Winneba, commenting. And even they asked me a question. He was saying whether he want to know whether it's a priority. Though the thing was catalogued and designed by their government. Then, you understand? But he wants to know whether it is a priority. You see, when you talk about idealness or with matters of priority, it depends upon the one who is seeing it. You understand? It's a subjective matter. Something ideal to you may not be ideal to me. Something that may be priority to you may not be priority to me. You understand? Taking the one who is executing the plan. So maybe at this point, those engineers, those workers at we, or those who are put in charge to work with that plan, sees it as a priority. So who am I to go and condemn? What I have no knowledge about. And I'm not part of those who are executed. But as a citizen, as a Ghanaian, I might say taking cognizance of our economic difficulties that we are going through, our power outages that we are going through. There are certain things we can channel certain resources to that place as a state of preference, as managing economy. You understand? So when we're able to do those things, and that becomes a secondary, after being able to achieve the ultimate highest point, that or the core value of that project, and you come up to attend to this recreational activity, that could be something better. I'm talking as a Ghanaian, a point of view, taking cognizance of our economic difficulty.
Oh, we're speaking as Ghanaians. So
no, but some people might not. Some might
not be objective.
Exactly so. Speak on the point of view of politics, trying to be mischievous. Because when you take into totality of the whole program, the package was designed by the previous government.
Yes, it was all part of it. I remember when the inauguration was done.
He has a good intention, but always things must be done according to priority. You understand? Even in the economy, you have scale of preference. Do you prefer that one to maybe solving the energy crisis? That is the issue we should look at, without putting any political twist to it. Then it's become mischievous.
So your conclusion is?
I'm saying that those executing the program, do they see it as priority? If it is priority to them, fine. But to me, as a Ghanaian, taking cognizance of the difficulty that the current government is going through with regards to energy problem that we are having, I don't see that one as a priority. That's all I would say.
Your talk on the subject of the rental, $63,000 were told by the MPH man. The minority in the press conference said they thought that was frivolous, very much unnecessary. It needs to be looked into. They've already, someone were told, the MPA to appear before it so that they undertake some explanations.
Yes, let me begin with where he ended.
The Gulf City.
Yes, the Gulf
City. Gulf
yes.
Park.
It's a good thing to always have a very progressive way of doing things that you have, like we have in Akosombo Township, where parents want their children to even go to the secondary school and so on and so forth. I think that was envisioned by some people many years back, and today if you go to Akosombo Township, you'll be happy with what they see, what you see. I think it's one of the state institutions that's been maintained, and so if you look at that model and you consider the fact that Bui was planned in that manner, that people, regardless of where you're coming from, you want to kind of stay in Bui and have a good school for your children and not miss Accra because you would miss playing golf in Tema or Achimota and so on and so forth. I think that it's a good thing to have, and some of us wish that the entire country was developed in that manner, so would not have teachers, for instance, craving to stay in the big cities while other parts of the country suffer. Now, the issue is about timeliness and whether we are ready to invest that much, money now, when the core business is still not yielding the desired results. And the core business of Bui is to generate electricity to support the entire energy mix of the country, and they are having challenges. So given the circumstances, you say that you will put the Gulf project and so on and so forth on the back burner and rather invest, okay, and make sure that we get maximum energy from the project, and then the others come on later. In that context, I'll look at the minority, press conference as a wake-up call. I would also look at it in the context of whistleblowing. Now, look, this project is meant to provide energy. We are not making the most out of it yet, and therefore let's be careful not to invest in secondary issues. So that is how I'll look at it. I will not look at it as petty and frivolous, because had they not blown the whistle, it would rest with management to go in for the money if they so decide to prioritize it, as my colleague said, that if in their view it's a priority, then they will go for it. But in the general milieu of what we need as a nation, I would think that we need to make sure that if there's any investment, we invest in the generation proper. Now, to the second issue, for me, is scandalous. Scandalous because I would not, in my private business, pay 63,000 a month for
dollars.
Yes, $63,000.
Only $63,000.
Well, a month for office accommodation. I think that is where we would.
Is it on the high side or what?
Oh, definitely on the high side. But you see, the minority did not provide
alternative rental
enough information to say that in that area, property of this nature are going for 20,000.
Valuation.
And so there's a clear gap of 40 or 30 and so on and so. Those are some of the missing links that would restrain. So but generally that you would and look at the currency in which we are talking about.
Dollars.
I go.
Well, the thing is in dollars. So if the dollar per CD ratio has increased, it isn't dollars. If it was fixed 3 years ago,
we must lead by example, Roland. We must lead by example, Roland. It is not okay for government officials to point out to private sector and say that you are dollarizing our economy, and yet they would peg things in dollars and transact business in dollars and expect the ordinary citizen not to also do the same. I think that we will need to be a bit more sincere and honest when it comes to what we expect of citizens, and do that by an example. Roland, if you import stuff into this country today, although you may end up paying in cedis, the duties and the rest are all based on the dollar. Then you are in charge of the system. You are running the system. But you turn around and say that citizens, business people are dollarizing the system. If we need to de-dollarize the system, I think that it must come from the state.
Mr. Blackson, how do we make sure that, well, we remove politics from everything? Is it that because the minority points it out, then it is wrong? Or is it that, well, a rental is a rental, this is how much it goes for, and so when they want to point it out, they also need to make sure they provide sufficient evidence, not to just say, well, it's because it's the MPA, a state institution, and so they are expending not judiciously public money, and in that respect perhaps also indicting whether it's an official or officials there of some level of mismanagement and a proper lack of supervision.
Yeah, Ron, what is happening is that you can talk about issue without indulging in politics. First and foremost, everything that exists in this country belongs to Ghanaians. And the state of Ghana existed before any political party came into being. So none of the institution in the country is bigger than the country itself, because they are all subset of the country. You understand? And when you come into the political arena, in our own democratic dispensation that we have outlined for ourselves, we have two systems that we are operating with, or two groups that form the parliament or the political operation in the country. We have minority and majority. Majority is the one governing, and they don't govern alone, they govern with the opposition, because the opposition serve as what? A check on the ruling. So that whatever lapses that goes on, they will draw the attention of the...
So that's what they're doing?
That is what they are doing. So I don't blame them. I don't blame them. But when the thing is reduced to personalities, then it becomes politics. Because if you don't like the head of Kuntu Blankson or the nose, you have to put something and just destroy him, forgetting the value. Look, every personality or everything that exists or God has created has a value and has, some mismatch or defect. Because you, Roland, sitting there, you are not totally, whole. There might be defect. You might be physically challenged.
Many defects.
That is it. Physically challenged. But because you are put on suit, nobody sees it. But when they see that physically challenged part of Kuntu Blankson, that one is highlighted. Oh, let's nail him. Without taking the value that person can contribute to the national kitty. You understand? So if we're able to, debunk ourselves from that assertions, I think this country will be able to come together, unite, and make sure that whatever is good for Ghana will be established, so that Ghana will be the first ultimate. You understand? But now you could see that individuals are bigger than Ghana, because people do things with impunity. The one who will stand and check is branded as what? The disrespectful, the enemy of the state. Instead of the thief is stealing. You understand? So that's why I'm trying to put the analogy that let's try and tackle issues with a nationalistic point of view by considering the state in which we belong to, but not individual political.
So, is that the current situation? Not from the perspective of the PPP per se, but with all your experiences and your own observations.
Yeah, I think that we are allowing people we've put in responsible positions to get away with, murder. Murder in quotes.
A lot of things.
Yeah, yes, because there's no way, Roland, you would spend 63,000 on office space for NPA if it was your, personal business. And I think that we have come to the point where while we are advising private sector people to borrow from the ethics and ethos of public sector, to support national development, I think it's important for public sector to also borrow, especially the procurement intelligence and integrity from the private sector. The private sector would not do that. Is it because at the end of the day you are a member of the board, you are a member of management, your salary is guaranteed, you are collecting petroleum taxes and so on and so forth, you are a regulator, and you see the dollars sitting in there,
so you have to expend it,
and so you have to expend it without asking the critical question.
Okay.
If I was managing this and I was going to be held accountable at the end of the year in terms of prudence and profit and so on and so forth, would I honestly spend 63,000 on office accommodation? I can tell you without checking, no way. Unfortunately, Roland, we don't have a data system where you would go and say, oh, East Legon in this neighborhood, a facility of this nature is 20,000. But I bet you nobody is paying 63,000 for something like that in East Legon.
What's the MPA? Is it the old building somewhere in Cantonment? Now they've moved?
No, they said they moved to East Legon.
East Legon, and that is what is.
They said the Cantonment's one, there were cracks and whatnot.
Okay, so they moved to East Legon.
Yes.
The last round of question on this very subject, because we have to move on to a subject, discuss it 15 minutes before we go. Why is it in the private sector there's always the prudent need for value for money for whatever activity that is undertaken in the business, but in the public sector, because I tell you, it's not about the MPA alone. I'm sure that if you go to many of the MMDAs or the ministries or the departments and agencies, they may have some public-private initiatives or whatever partnerships they have, that you see that some rentals or something has been over-invoiced or the expenditure on it is above board. Why do we have it in the private sector? A private businessman wants to manage the company very well, but for a state department, it goes haywire. Mr. Blankson.
Well, you see, you can reduce it to our way of doing things.
Thinking that the private sector is
attitude,
that the public sector is for government.
The culture we inherited. When you go back to our culture, you could see that.
You mean the colonial times?
Well, partly that is a problem. When a man is going to marry, then put it that way, they will tell the man that, oh, when the woman gets wealth, he should bring it home. But when the man the woman gets or incur debt, it should be paid by the man. You see that philosophy and that concept. So it has, come back into wherever we work. That government work, we drag it, we don't carry it. So when you find 2 or 3 people working in a society or in a group of company which belongs to the state, that attitude and that notion is at the back of the
That is for the state.
For the state.
No matter
And your papa there. So immediately you, Roland, that you are there, that you...
Today you're using me for examples, pal.
Of course. Well, that's the only one, you are the only one closer to me that I can use. Because you wanted to...
I'm worried.
Chastise this man, so I have to use it today. I don't want to get to you, won't spare me. You know, and such an issue happens. The one looking at you is, oh, chia, wait. Jimmy or bedroom or you want to say, say, you want papa there.
Why do we have that attitude?
Because, you see, we have a lot of bootlickers. Because, and also at times, scarcity also bring that attitude in play. Because you sitting there, if you know there's no option for you, so no matter what, you have
the only option.
But when they put you as, why are you going to get a job to do? So you have to be there and make sure that either you join them or you get out. And when you get out, you get hungry. Only few people can withstand it. But in the private sector, I mean, it's my business. This is the parameters I've set for you. These are the ethics. Either you go by it or you leave it. You understand? There are options. So the person is more conscious that, hey, if this company do not grow, I'm out of job. But as for the government work, you will get people, even big men who will support your idea.
Because they know that they are there for the short term.
Create and share. Yes, they are there for the short time.
And you're a top politician. You've been in government before, so I think you are speaking from experience, right?
I'm speaking from the general observation. Right. Don't be mischievous. I told you.
Is that where our society is going?
Well, unfortunately, that's where we are. And if we don't make deliberate efforts to
come out of it,
arrest the situation, it will become worse. And in addition to what is, what he said, I think that most of the time it is the lack of application of good corporate governance practices. Do we have the right people in place managing the institution? How did they get there? Did they get there based on merit and competence to deliver on the job, or they got there through patronage? Now, when you get there through patronage, then you are not responsible to the institution and its mandate. You would be there so long as you satisfy the powers that brought you there. And most of the time, if you investigate further, you would realize that some godfather, some godmother
within the system,
within the system probably knows who the owner of the property is, and therefore once the offer is made,
somebody doesn't have a godfather.
We don't.
And you don't have a godfather.
We don't.
Sure.
No.
But you think that should not be the way we should be going?
I'm talking about the principles. That will help.
No, but you think that that's not the way we should be going?
Definitely. I mean, private sector is there to add value and make profit and justify the existence of the business. What is the objective of the public sector? Is it only service? But even
is that
when
mentality
you're talking
we
about
also inherited from the colonial administration? Because when the public service started pre-independence, well, we had the mentality that it was for the white man, and because the white man was oppressive, if you go and destroy his public service, well, that was not your business.
Well, that is unfortunate. I think I heard that over this weekend on one of the networks.
Oh, you heard it?
And I think that it's a very sad commentary.
Is that culture we've inherited from there?
Well, I'm saying to you that
it's been long since independence.
It's been long since independence.
So the mentality.
And why don't we focus on our destiny instead of talking about the negative history? What is it that we can do to change this mindset? Okay, please. The people at NPA are not JSS, primary, children. They are professionals.
Real experts.
They are experts. Let us demand accountability and let them, operate based on best practices. And I'm saying that the days when we divorced public sector from private sector It's long gone. Today, we have to mix the two. And the key word is accountability. If these people knew that they were going to be held accountable, they would have done some, due diligence. And by now, if it's the standard rate in the area,
I think we can easily find out.
They will provide you with evidence that, look, the adjoining property is going for that, this is going for that. They will provide you with answers.
Properties are expensive, I don't know.
We all know that properties are expensive. But Roland, let me just give you a small clue. Multiply 63,000 times 24, that's 2 years. Okay? You could buy a property. Raymond. So why are we, traveling this path when we could, spend the taxpayers' money in a more prudent way? So let us learn from the private sector. The private sector is not bad at all. In fact, if you want to talk about history, I would rather say that we should be regretting the way we bastardized the private sector and entrepreneurship years back, and make deliberate, strong efforts to restore confidence in the private sector. After all, it is the private sector that must get it for the state to regulate. But if you bastardize the private sector when they are the places where things are working well, even in difficult circumstances, and you decide to focus on service, and do it anyhow, it will not inure to the benefit of the people of Ghana. Okay,
so my passionate Ghanaian politicians in the studio this morning, they've been speaking on a number of the subjects, and today very passionate about the need for patriotism. Do you think that our last round of questioning, when we're talking about patriotism, do you think it still lives in us?
You see, you made mention of that perhaps your brother Kutublas has no godfather. I have a godfather. My godfather is Almighty God. Because he's the creator.
All of us.
All of us. And when he says no, no man can say yes. You understand? So if as a nation, if you want to develop, we should consider Ghana first in all what we do. By virtue of our training, tells us that when the state is developed, all personality involved will develop. One, we don't have market for MPP. Neither do we have market for CPP or NDC. There's only
didn't mention PPP.
Yeah, okay. Let me put it in this way: we don't have individual market for any political party, so that my brother will be covered, or other parties also will be covered, because we are in a pluralism. So when the system is developed to the fullest, it will cater for everybody. Because Ghana, we are blessed. It's the country in the sub-Sahara who has everything. Do you know that it's only Israel and Ghana that we have prekese? That plant, it's only Israel and Ghana that we have prekese. It's a unique factor God has made this country. But because of one, individualism, enviness, petty jealousy, pull him down attitude, that is where we are.
PhD.
Yes. If you don't have
doctorate,
if you don't like the individual, and you know that the individual can make a difference in the system, use him.
I wanted you to have a last word. Just
patriotism is
doesn't live in us.
Well, these days we are lamenting over it and not taking a lot of action. But
we want it, but I think we don't want to adopt it.
Yes, but Roland, leadership is cause. Everything else is the effect. If our leaders take patriotism seriously, they will put in place systems that will begin to reorientate the people of Ghana, and we would have patriotism restored. Every now and then people tell us about the days of Nkrumah and the school curriculum where they had the courtesy for boys and girls and the need for nationalism. It was a deliberate effort to instill certain core values into us. What are our leaders doing about that? Let's stop the lamentation and put in place measures that will rekindle the spirit of patriotism in all of us.
Okay, our chief patriot this morning, William Dowokpo, is convener for the PPP's anti-corruption campaign coalition. And also in the studio, a former member of Parliament for Infantiman East, George Kuntu Blankson. Thank you very much also.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, I hope to have you again paired to line up with me for our discussions on AM Talk sometime. It's been AM Talk. We have interesting discussions. Please again log on to our YouTube channel, My Joy Online. We have over 5,000 videos, and especially the latest discussions we always have on the platform, the AM show. We always upload there. We're taking a break. When we come back, we'll be having lawyer Dr. Maurice Ampo in the studio speaking to Mamavio Uswa Boaje about a number of things. What legal options do you have as an individual if you feel your rights have been breached? And also there's been more recently, Justice Jones Doche has been talking about the criminal justice system in the country and the state of Ghana's prisons and the judiciary. How does it deprive people or the ordinary citizenry of their own rights as far as justice delivery is concerned? We're taking a break. When we come back, we'll have a lot more for you. Do stay on.